You're listening to This Week in Real Estate with your host, Rob Golfi. Brought to you by the Golfi Team at RE/MAX Escarpment, featuring Conrad Zarini, broker-owner of RE/MAX Escarpment Realty Inc., and Brian Hogben, owner of Mission 35 Mortgages. Let's hear what's going on in real estate this week.
Hey, look at them. We got Brian. Brian back. He was away last week. Okay. That's it.
Down in sunny Florida, it was great. It was absolutely great. Some vitamin D down there.
So Brian goes like this to me. He tells me he bought a place in Florida about 2-3 years ago. Yeah. And he signed a 10-year fixed mortgage. And it was how much was it?
3.75%.
And I go, holy shit, how'd you get a deal like that? And then he goes, are you kidding me? When I signed that at the time, interest rates were a lot lower.
Yeah. It's so true. It just goes to show that I remember getting that.
See that? See how good it looks now? Like you took you rolled a dice on that, didn't you?
Yeah, well, I did. They could do a 10-year, or there was another term that was a little bit higher, and I was just like, I took the 10-year 3.75. And you know what? It's so funny. You learn as you grow and you go, but like I was pissed. I was like 3.75. I'm like, there's rates at 1.95 here, and you're giving me 3.75. And I was like, I didn't really have any other option, so I took it. But
good for you. It paid off. How many years did you have to pay 3.75 before it caught up to that? Maybe 18 months?
Oh gosh. Well, actually, you know what? We closed 20. It was probably close to 18 months. 18
so not bad. Yeah. And after that, now you're doing the happy dance around the house and.
Oh, I was down there. Absolutely, I was. Right. So you know what I do? I will. I've got a lot of deals and I've got a lot of variables myself too. So I think I'm about even. I think that's.
No, you know what? You're right. You're right about that. Yeah. But
the diversity.
I'll tell you. And the one thing, what I didn't realize, and, I'm so focused on selling real estate and buying real estate and just buried in it. And I didn't pay attention that I should have secured all my mortgages, like a 5-year fixed or whatever, when it was at the 1 or 2% rate. I would have paid a little more, but I don't know. Like, I mean, we could have, should have, we always can say that, but really, I mean, I have to give credit to all those people that did lock in for 5 years at the lower rate. Good for them. God bless them.
Yeah, I think it was, at the times too, you only know what you know. You're getting information from the Bank of Canada. The Bank of Canada is telling you that inflation is going to stay low. Where do you get your information from? You're still 1% below. And like you say, hindsight's 20/20. And I think this is what makes everybody better right now. The longer that you're in any business, like when I listen to you guys talk about years gone past, it makes you better and more educated about all the advice you give all the time, right? So,
sorry. So you were mentioning, so you sent me this thing this morning. The superintendent of financial institution is proposing stricter rules for qualifying for a mortgage. Yeah. So I mean, like, how much more can they restrict? Like, they're really like pretty soon nobody's going to be able to get a mortgage. Like, I mean,
I think it's one of those things. They're doing an investigation right now. They're asking questions right now. They're not going to have findings until April, right? So, but I think there's 3 things that they're looking at right now. And one thing that we have to remember is they implemented the stress test, and right now they're pretty proud of themselves for implementing the stress test. Like, it was a good thing, kudos. Yeah. We don't have panic sales going on. So the stress test was good. But the 3 things they're looking at right now, one is I can't even understand it. It's a weird one. It's debt to income. Okay. So that's like, they're basically saying they don't want to see more than 4.5 times somebody's income in borrowing. That's going to be super tricky, because how do you define income? If you're self-employed, you make 20 grand. Do you really make 20 grand? Or is it your last 2 years of income? That'll be.
Yeah, but they've been doing this with commercial for a long time. Like, this is just an idea in the commercial world where there's those ratios, right? And it's just, they're just bringing it to. And the other thing is, and a lot of times they are bringing it in because of self-employed, because now people are using their self-employed income, like their overall income, because they know self-employed people maybe don't pay themselves, but they're looking at their income from a self-employed more globally. Like, what kind of income does the company generate? Yeah.
Right. So I said exactly.
It's funny. I sent it to Brian first thing, this article.
Yeah, he did, yeah.
And I sent it to RBC like at 7 o'clock in the morning saying, hey, what are you guys doing about this?
Well, the tough thing for RBC and the banks is the second one they're proposing, because right now they're proposing amendments to the debt service requirements. So what that means is that right now, if you put down less than 20%, you have to be lower than 40% total debt service ratio. So what that means is they don't want to see more than 40% of your income going out the door for mortgage, taxes, and debts. Yeah. If you put down more than 20%, the banks can make the exception. They'll be like, oh, Rob's got a 30 or 40% down payment. He's got great credit. He's got a bunch of money in the bank. They're proposing taking that exception limit away.
Oh,
yeah. And that's going to be really, because, and Conrad, the article that he sent me as well, too. I love it. It's like the Bermuda Triangle here. Yeah. But it's like, that's going to push people into subprime lending now, because if the bank doesn't have that room for exception on a good deal, like, am I worried about Conrad not making his payments because his debt service is maybe 50% instead of 40? No. But now, if they implement that rule,
well, Stephen Smith was so smart when he bought Home Capital, because it's an alternative lender. There was only 2 other people bidding for that. And I've been talking about this for the last 3-4 months. I said, this guy knows something. He's probably been in on some of the discussions. Totally. So I've been talking about Stephen Smith. I was in Vancouver. I talked about him there. This guy's brilliant. And he's really confident about the Canadian mortgage, prime mortgage market, and because of this shift. The other thing is, though, the little bit of good news, the silver lining is now maybe they're going to look at 1-year stress test, 2-year mortgage stress test, and 5-year mortgage stress test, which is a little bit better. So it gives some flexibility. Why am I stress testing people 5 years? At the same rate as I'm stress testing people at
well,
1
even
year.
On the refinance, right? Because you're right, the third part is a stress test. I don't think you should be stress testing a refinance the same as a purchase.
So are they actually doing that for refinance, doing the stress test on that? Holy
shit. And it makes it harder for someone to switch. It's almost like getting handcuffs in a lender, right? Because when your mortgage matures, if it matures at 5 and now you got to qualify at 7 and you don't qualify, you can't move. And so now you're kind of like, okay, lender, give me whatever rate you're going to give me because I can't move. That's not really fair. That's like, that sucks.
And and I was just going to say one more thing. Default rates, okay? So if you take the period between 2012, let's say 15 or 16, default rates were 0.3%. Do you know what they are today in Hamilton? I just did Hamilton. And if you go on CMHC, default rates, you can pull it up. It's amazing. It's 0.05
Holy
today.
shit.
So it's like it was 1/3%. It's now like it's like we're talking like a half of a percent. You know
how far back do they go with those stats, Conrad?
I got it from 2012. Default rates 2012.
I'm wondering. I remember when I first got into business, there was actually quite a bit of default rate back in the like the early 2000s, 1999, 2000, 2001, and I think that those people were just hanging on as long as they could from the 90s. Because that 90s, that whole decade was bad. Yeah. But
they just did the last 10 years, and default rates haven't really nothing. Nothing even hit over. There were some areas that like Charlottetown maybe hit like 0.5% or 0.6%, but nothing, nothing to
I think there's a small segment of the market though that one does, because that captures the insured mortgages. It doesn't capture the private mortgages, right? So I think even though private mortgages are very smaller in comparison to the insured business, but still that'll be interesting to see, because I think the private mortgage sector will have a higher rate of default than that one. But I don't know what that's going to translate into, because that number is really, really hard to find as well too.
Yeah. And like I think we said in the past, anybody that is defaulting on their mortgage, regardless of the interest rates, they were defaulting regardless. They just, they probably overbought and they're struggling. They got their furniture on financing. They got their cars on financing. They just blew their brains out everywhere, and they just can't handle the monthly payments. And it's now, especially the way interest rates are going, their car payments are probably going to be higher. And everything's just gone up. So, and now they got to pay that do not pay for 2 years on your Leon's or Brick bill. That's coming up soon for a lot of people, because they just,
what's coming up now too is Revenue Canada is sending out notices now. Revenue Canada, they gave out so much money for government subsidies, right? So now they're like, okay, let's collect our money now. And they are serious about it. They're they're sending out notices that we've seen right now for people that haven't filed for 2, 3, 4 years. And they're saying, you better be filing or we're coming after you.
They said, what is it? They lent out $4 billion, and I think they've collected half of it already, from my understanding. I'm not sure what the actual number, but they collected 50% of it.
I'm not sure.
And I was listening to somebody, I can't remember where I read this on the news, but the guy, they wanted like $23,000 or $30,000 from him. And he goes, well, I needed that money to survive and stay alive. Like now they want it back. Now I'm going to go broke. Giving it back. I thought, wasn't that money? I don't know the whole concept about that money. They were what did they?
Well, they had the small business CERB loan, right? So they would give you $40,000, give or take, and the idea was that you pay back 30 of it, right? So it's kind of like, I know that when we saw a lot of those on the small business side because we had to negotiate payment terms and how that was working with loans. So that's one of them. So there's a little bit of a loss on the Revenue Canada there, but like you're paying back less. You're paying back 30 grand still. That could be a lot for a small business owner if they don't have that money.
No, but the individual person on CERB, are they having to pay back 100% of CERB?
I don't think so. I don't
know.
But they add it to their income. But they're going to add it to their income, and then that's where they're going to collect the money, right?
Okay. So
that's where it's at.
So people are going to be struggling even more when, if they got CERB, and they realized after that a lot of people collected it that shouldn't have collected. They were just printing money and giving it away. But
those are the people that ended up, were winners during the pandemic and made an income. That's the guys. They want to claw that back, right?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And those are the people that weren't even filing income taxes because I think how they did, if you had a SIN number, you got it. Yeah. And if you hadn't filed taxes, they're like, here's your checks. Yeah. And to your point, they're just, okay, I'll take it. So
the guy that was making $500 a month working part-time was now collecting $2,000 a month.
Yeah.
And he's got a nice Mercedes car in his driveway now.
Yeah.
So what else is happening? So the news this week, defrauding of people's homes. Conrad, have you seen this happen in all the years? Has anybody...
No, and it's so funny because title insurance always talks about it, Stewart Title or any of these guys or First Canadian. They always talk about this fraud. We've seen it in rental, we've seen it a lot in rental, and you got to really pay attention. You got to really pay attention to that ID. We've seen ID where the dates don't match, and and it's usually a payroll company or something like that their employment. You know what I mean? It's this one phone number. They don't really have an address. You got to do a little bit more due diligence. But I'll tell you something. Both in the case that they cited, the CBC, it's Royal LePage. It was the Royal LePage brokerage that leased it, and that did the listing. That's my favorite part.
I know. I saw that.
Don't list with Royal LePage, guys. They don't check things out. Remax and the Golfi team, they check everything out. So
that's
guys,
it. You know what? Actually, Phil almost had a fraudulent offer, and I can't remember if he was he said to the clients, he goes, I feel this is fraudulent. I wouldn't work with this. And he goes, this could hurt you if you're expecting these people to close on that day. And then Phil changed the offer. I think said, hey, a certified check upon, they had to bring it with the offer, not upon acceptance. We weren't going to go through all the negotiations and all that kind of stuff. You know what? And it was fraud. They found out later that these guys were going around trying to put offers on different houses, and it was fraud. So if your gut says something is wrong, then it is wrong. There's no doubt about it. But titles and insurance. But you know what the one thing is, and I just want to say, the one story is the granddaughter found out that that they were trying to sell the house, and they caught it in time. He bought the house in 1970. Chances are he had the house paid for. Also, he didn't have titles insurance. Now, how hard would he have to go through trying to get his money back if he didn't have titles insurance?
Oh, you're right. And all the title insurance does is help you clean up the title. So there still could be losses. Don't get carried away with what title insurance. But I remember them talking. Oh yeah, it's not like they're going to hand you the check. But you know what? I think, look, it all starts with that rental and that rental application, and people got it. Realtors and landlords got to be vigilant. But I would be putting a Google alert on your address. I think that's, I put a Google alert, and it's funny. I looked through all this stuff, how to protect myself, and I didn't see that. But I would definitely put a Google alert on my address just to see if there's any shenanigans going on, if anybody's advertising your property.
Yeah, I should go through that on my properties. Just Google it and see if there's anybody.
And put a Google alert and have your, if you're leasing out a property, put a Google alert on the property you're leasing out as a realtor, and even as a landlord, you should be putting Google alerts on your property.
Great advice.
And just for the title insurance part too, for those that have, older people that have the mortgage paid off in full, we advise people all the time to maintain or keep a charge on the property. And that could be a secured line of credit. Like, even if the mortgage is paid off and you have a registered line of credit on there with a bank for 50K or 100K, it's a lot harder to commit title fraud because there's something registered on the property. So the biggest ones susceptible are when it's totally free and clear of no charges. So leave a line of credit on there.
Even though you don't use it. Even though if you don't use it. Yeah.
Totally. And then you'll get title insurance.
You get alerted.
When you do it. So it's totally well worth it for elderly or older people that have a free and clear home. Put a line of credit on it. 50 grand.
Awesome, guys. Well, listen, we're running out of time. Thanks for being there, and have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, Rob.